Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
For men who refuse to stay complacent, welcome to the Upgraded Man Podcast with your host, Chris Anderson.
All right, welcome back again, the Upgraded Man Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and I'm here on this journey with you. Again, Upgraded Man is not a destination. It's not who's better than who. It's a journey we're all on together to improve every day and not be complacent in life. So excited for this episode. It's going to help us grow with our personality, with our mindset. And by the end of this episode, if you're listening, I'm hoping you walk away with a way to spot at least one pattern that's kind of running your life, and maybe not for the better. So we brought on a guest who is an expert in personalities and Stoicism, and I'm really excited to dive into this topic. Arky Jones, welcome to the podcast.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Chris. It's going to be a good talk.
Absolutely. And, as we're building out the show, this is just a caveat for me and how my mind works because it's what just popped up. So Arky's from Australia.
Yep.
And I was thinking, man, how cool would we start to have like intro songs for people walking up like baseball does, but like podcast walk ups. So, like as I'm doing an intro, like we could play like I come from a land down under. I'm sorry, I can't sing, but I don't know. Maybe we'll introduce walk up songs for podcast guests in the future and have some fun with it. I don't know, but that's what crossed my mind because I have ADHD, D, whatever letters there are out there, I guess. So, yeah, there you go. Everyone's gonna be like, "What is this guy on today?" He is out there. But Arky, man, thanks again for being on the show. Super excited to dive into Stoicism, personality. You're the founder of Personality Peak. So you've done a little bit of research and diving into personalities and Stoicism. So yeah, really, really excited to have you on. I'd like to just kind of jump right into it because you've said, personality, right? We all have personalities. They're all different. You say that our personality is a mirror. It's a mirror and not a label. So when you're talking to someone, when you're talking to a guy and, like, oh, that's just how I am. What does that kind of spark for you, or what kind of flag does that raise for you?
Well, this is one of the core concepts that I sought to answer at the very beginning. So the idea of this is who I am, it very much was an excuse I used. And so let me just answer a very quick question first. So when I went on the journey, the very first journey before I got into personality, I started looking at the self and asking myself why I was doing certain behaviors. And the biggest story that actually started this journey off was one where I woke up with a stinking hangover and my kids were in the room giving me a present. It was my birthday. The boys had been around the night before, but I was in this cycle, and I realized in that moment that how precious this moment was, and why was I choosing to do this? This was a long time back. My children are adults now, okay. And I at that time I was like, okay, so what is my pattern? What am I doing now that's leading to these choices? And it was then that I started looking at fundamentally breaking it down into the different human traits, the different traits I was experiencing. Upon understanding that, I realized that while other personality tests out there were trying to show people who they are, I was like, okay, who am I right now? And so that was the question I set out to answer. Who am I right now? And then we'll come into it later on as to what we can do with that. But yeah, just fundamentally, the core of this was, who am I at this moment, and then where do I want to go?
So if they're saying that, like, that's their response of like, it's just who I am. Is that a deflection? Is that kind of trying to protect or an excuse for their behavior? Is that kind of where we're at with that comment?
Look, I mean, let's firstly say everyone's got merit. Okay, so everyone's got merit, but the question is very specifically as to, this is just who I am. So what you have to remember is, from the moment you're born, there is only one thing that is never so. People say death and taxes, but it is change. It is change of state. Now, this is on a pathophysiological level as well as on a human learning level. Some may call it even on the soul, an old soul versus a young soul kind of thing. So if you don't accept that you are in a state of change, a permanent state of flux, and a growth opportunity, then you yourself are not living to the fullest. So in answer to your question, Chris, that's the long answer, but in answer to your question, unfortunately, that word, that I am just who I am, is a excuse for your interface, your personality, to maintain patterns that aren't necessarily healthy and aren't growth mindset, aren't growth, which is part of life, accepting. And in doing so, not only do you make excuses, you deprive yourself the opportunity to live its life to its fullest.
Why do people make so many excuses instead of wanting to live fully? Why do we just err on the side of that is who I am, those excuses? Is there a gap there? What's missing that keeps people, this is just me versus I want to live fully and upgrade, every day to be my best self?
So what we need to remember is that it isn't, when I say it isn't the individual's fault, everyone has to take responsibility for themselves. Sure. The only thing that we can control ultimately is us and our decisions. So when I say that, I say it in a more abstract way, because the game has been telling people from the moment that they are born, consume, do this is what's next, this will make you happy. So right. Through materialism and through kind of not introspection, that people can feel that they're working towards something, but this is who they are as a person, this is them fixed. Whereas if they could change the messaging from what do I want to what do I need, you'll find that human beings, after we've met our basic needs, need very little other than growth. And that's growth through friends, family, community, environment, but mostly in the soul. And so the question I would say to the person who uses that word, uses that short phrase, this is who I am, is that if you choose to define yourself that this is who you are, then this is who you are. But unless you are a finished product, gift wrapped and perfect, which doesn't exist, by the way, you are depriving yourself of an opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. And basically, you're talking about self-awareness, right? And looking at yourself and your life, and that's all we can control, right? But with that too, so self-awareness, right? We're kind of on that track. That has almost been, I think, maybe overused to the point of it comes off to men as like a woo-woo soft type comment. So what would you respond to that, of being like, when someone says you need to be self-aware, people are like, oh yeah, that, whatever, I'm going to go kumbaya with other guys and cry and all that stuff. Navigate us through what your definition of self-awareness is and how to approach that.
Okay. So let's first of all say this, that if someone chooses to see deep introspection, deep honesty with the self as woo-woo kumbaya, unfortunately, that is how they have chose to interface with the world. There is nothing tougher than to hold a mirror to yourself and ask the questions that you want to ask when nobody else is watching, when the world is turned off, when nobody cares, when it only matters to you. And the reason I'm saying this is that and by we is there is this thing called the feed. Now, there is before the feed when I was a young man and after the feed. The feed is one aspect of it. It's telling you all the time what to do. Don't take responsibility. Take the easy way. Here's the pill. This will make you happy. The thing is that unless you are willing to look inside, you will never achieve peace. And the reason is that no one else can give it to you. And peace in itself is a struggle. Peace involves willingness to change, to grow, to understand. The world since I was a kid is completely different. And if I dare to sit in it, to stew, I could go insane because there's so much that maddens me. But learning to ask myself the hard questions, and I can, when you're ready, because if you need it, I'll give some real examples. But short version is if anyone who says it's kumbaya, anyone who is that, it might be to them, but I would argue very strongly that you're not holding the mirror up when nobody else is watching, because the fact that you even to say that involves that you think someone else is going to judge, when there are only two things that can judge you in this world. One is you, and one is a power beyond our comprehension.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest struggle for a lot of guys, is because, for so long we're taught, just push your emotion down, don't talk about it, don't share it, no one cares, things like that. And then almost being exposed to the complete opposite, right? Go out, release your emotion, like do the introspective work, cry, let it out, all that stuff's like almost complete opposite. So I think it's such a shift for a lot of people. They don't know how to bridge and find that happy medium of actually being able to have self-awareness and self-introspection and things like that, right? So yeah, I would love you to share some examples of how we can successfully bridge that of like, I guess, old programming or old teaching of how we were raised to health, being in a healthy spot of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, let me just say this, okay? So when you are in hell with fire all around you, and all you know is pain, all you see is misery, then there is some merit into just pushing it down and taking the pain in that moment. But in that moment also, you can stay there and you can burn, but you've got to keep moving forward. So I don't mean to be so dramatic about this, but it is true that the behavior doesn't come from nowhere. Right. So what we were told is most of us would have had tough upbringings, tough life, been exposed to things we wish we weren't exposed to. And that forces that kind of creating a cage where we must keep this inside, and it becomes a protective mechanism. So in fact, it is an interface that we learned, which is difficult to understand, but it's the environment that we were put in, that we were told this is the way. And the truth is, it is one way. But the thing is, if you accept that that is the way, then you immediately force yourself to stay there. And so that is the metaphor of hell, means you effectively, part of you stays in hell. So the idea is, with a lot of the sayings, a lot of the best speeches is keep moving forward, inch by inch, claw your way out, all that jazz. I won't get into the to famous speeches, but what that means though is that if they can accept that, therefore, that part of them has a role, it is valuable, there is an honesty in that, and you can bring that demon back if time demands, because there's things beyond our control that in that moment, if we start looking for growth opportunities, when we just need to put out the fire, put the fire out first. So before anything, I want to be absolutely clear. I'm not saying when there is an immediate action, occasionally you do not need to suppress everything and just focus on what you know, because you do. Okay, so moving on from that, if you stay there, you will not grow. So what must happen is to be willing, as you emerge from the difficulty, what would make my life better now? And when I say my life, don't think this is a selfish thing, because I assure you it's not. My life, because if I can improve me, if I can upgrade myself, then my interface with the world upgrades. Through my upgrade of the interface with the world, what that does is it brings people up around me. And so one of the most selfless acts a man can make is to actually improve himself through a willingness to look very closely at his own actions, consequences, and what he defines himself as, and be honest with himself. Is there anything I can do just 1% better? And if there is, take steps towards doing it. And my example, Chris, is I used to react negatively in traffic. You can extrapolate this across many things.
Sure.
But I used to kick off, like say someone cut me off at the last minute, I'd honk my horn, speed up, and just basically behave in a way that was unbecoming. And one day I found myself doing it when there was other people in the car. I won't say who, but very precious to me. And I caught myself in that moment, in that second, luckily before escalation had occurred. And there was almost like a new neural pathway in my brain was forged. And I realized there and then that if I do this, then nobody wins and everybody loses. Whereas before, it was very normal for me to react at another bad driver.
So where is that shift? So someone listening for this, is it the person who gets mad at people in traffic? Who's needing to hear this most? That they're missing out on so much more greatness in their life because they're not leaning into self-awareness.
Well, I would say that even there is no one, and I don't mean to sound so broad, but there is no one on this planet who values themselves, who values their community, who values their families, who values their friends, who will not benefit from growth. And I don't mean to be like a platitude. Let me give you a good example. Okay. So let's say this is something men face, especially as we get older.
Yeah.
We have a group of friends or so-called friends who exhibit certain patterns. And one thing with people is they see you as a pattern that they predefined in their interface with the world. So they've created this about you. And then men who choose to be led, to try and be kind of this so-called player of the pack, can often exhibit behaviors because they think that's what's expected of them within this group, within this community, as opposed to what is best for them. And so therefore, in all aspects, you can extrapolate that out to your mother, your father, even your family. You can define who am I at any time. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need stability, because everything should be an opportunity for you to be able to, how can I say this? Can we agree, Chris, that in the modern world, like we've kind of the virtue of self-sacrifice may be misunderstood, as in it means you're the one giving all the time, as opposed to it is an opportunity for you to become a more rounded, more fully experienced person. And this is one of the misnomers, that we've taken what were traditional male virtues and not just virtues, something to live with. Think about men. I mean, I served, and think about men who you've been with in times of hardship. There is a kinship there you cannot replace. But that who you were then is not who you are 20 years later, and it should not define you. And so therefore, that in any moment there is merit in what you did, and what you did was probably the right thing to do at that time, but you don't have to let it define your future.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think that the growth piece there of moving into it, and kind of like your identity, your personality, and you talked early about, personality tests, and they, tell you who you are, but like who you are right now. I always think of like the quote, and try to kind of live and grow to this, is it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Like, I want to grow and, be able to do things and be able to lead and be able to, you know, just be fit and things like that. But also that side of like the calmness, having the peace, having that, just that a little bit, I guess, a softness paired with that what could be harshness of masculinity. I think of characters like Aragon in Lord of the Rings, and people like that who are, who can inflict damage, who can take control of situations, but also has a soft, kind, loving side. And that's kind of what I'm kind of like trying to build into. So what are ways we can improve our perception or personality and learn to be more like that? Because what I hear you saying is, growth is important and our personality is important, and not letting external factors control our reactions. So how do we control our reactions, our emotions, and still be able to grow into a strong, leading, compassionate type person, I guess?
So there are a few methods that can be utilized, but one of the first things and simplest concepts that we can all understand, and often simple is the best because we can use it in any given moment, is the concept of loci of control, of what you can control, what you can own. So let me give you a bit of a silly example, but let's say that your partner constantly asks you to do your shirt and empty the dishwasher. It sounds silly, but it's still a role that has to be fulfilled.
Mhm.
And what I would say is that now, if I see the dishwasher full and it's clean, I just empty the dishwasher. I don't make a thing of it. It's just emptied. Whereas before it was unspent potential, and I was putting that load onto another person.
Mm.
And so, coming back to the control, what you can control is your actions. You can control your immediate vicinity, and you can control your direction with good choices today. So each moment. So like right now, Chris, in our world, the only thing that truly exists right now is me and you having this conversation. Everything in the past has gone, and it's shaped who we are up until this moment, and the future is yet to come.
Mm.
So therefore, that means that any one of us in any given moment can make choices in the present that will either positively or negatively influence the future.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's say, for example, right now that there are wars going on in the world. There are things in say, for example, that you've got a boss who is incredibly unpleasant. You've got a partner. Let's be honest. Some people have got partners that are toxic. You have friends that suck you into use of substances that will alter your cognitive state, and deep down, you know, because you're in this moment right now, that these things could be better. You can control making choices that would set you up to move away from that, but you can't control them. And so the short answer to your question is control to its fullest and seek maximal truth, that what you can control, and accept with a distinction that it is beyond your control, stuff that you cannot control, and let it go. So if your house is burnt down, there's no point pining for the house. You have to move forward. It's no longer within your control.
Yeah.
But what you can do is take steps to start rebuilding it.
Yeah. So what are some steps that someone could take right now to start building that new future, that new, not necessarily personality, but that new mindset, that new persona, perhaps, to be less reactive, more in control of what they can control?
No, it's a brilliant question, because the concept of it is very easy just for me just to go, control what you control and let go what you can't, because
Sure.
the minutia is in the details. And so first of all, let me caveat this, that anyone's journey is personal to them. And so while I will try to talk in broad terms, it's an infinite possibilities of what anyone could do in any given moment to make a choice. So let's look at some commonalities that we could all do right now. So one example that's probably the strongest one, because it represents. So can we accept, Chris, that for people who work for a living, which is most of the world, that money represents stored time? They've sacrificed their time in the past,
Sure.
and money. Okay. So let's say that you have unopened bills. So unopened bills are basically a they're a lien on your previous time spent and your future time, depending on your bank balance. That is still, it's unspent potential in that you've not opened it yet because you don't know what it is. So when you get a bill, for example, it doesn't matter what it is, your gas, your electric, whatever, your car payment, if you open it immediately, you then know the enemy. You know where you are. You take full accountability, full responsibility for it. And it is no longer spent. Now, whether you can pay it or not, that is a question for in a moment. But at that time, leaving things undone that can be done, it is delaying responsibility. And we've all heard of delayed gratitude, which is what many men do every single day. Many men do it for themselves. They do it for their children. They do it for their communities. They delay gratification, but you can also delay consequence. But do you know the story of the Pied Piper?
Yeah.
The piper always pays the tune in the end.
Yeah.
So you're better to get ahead of it. You're better to know the music, and you're better to set the dance, because if you don't, that will eat at you. And I personally, if I leave things undone that I know need to be done, and even down to the fact, let's say, for example, that I need to do the service on my car, it starts to bother me inch by inch. And then I get out there and I just do the bloody service. The other day, my son's lift bolts in his Toyota Celica needed changing, and he wasn't sure how to redo the cam. And so it was one of them. And it was like, if we leave this, there's a chance the bolt will snap. So we just got out there and did it, even after I'd been on a 12-hour day. Now, it's not about me. The point is that if I leave things that can be done now, then I have something here that scratches and scratches and scratches. And if you say you don't, then I don't think that is true, because if it has to be done, then it has to be done, and eventually you're going to pay. So one thing you can do is face the demons head on. It doesn't mean you can defeat them there and then, but you look them in the eye.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to start, is just knowing what has to be done, get it done, no excuses type thing, and just start attacking those. And so if someone looks at themselves and they see what has to be done, right? They're like, I got to make changes in my life. My attitude, my mindset, my personality, things have to change. I'm treating people poorly, maybe, or I'm reacting to situations in a negative way, or I'm not getting as much done as I need to. It goes back to control what you can control, taking the right actions in your life that's going to move the needle forward you want, not worrying about what everyone else says. Because if change comes with negativity, even in disguised as love, right? Because you can want to change for the better, and someone might want to stop you to, quote unquote, protect you because they love you, because they're scared of what could happen to you, or it's a risk or something like that. So it almost sounds a little bit like Stoicism. Is that kind of what we're kind of circling around right now?
You're absolutely correct. It is one aspect of that, and it's my probably one of my core beliefs. The only other thing I will say is that I think that we've associated the word is of surrender as a negative, but surrender can actually be a massive strength as well, and so it's Stoicism, but it's kind of interwoven with the concept of surrender. Yeah. And then ultimately what I would argue is that we need to look at what we keep and what we kill. But all of them kind of fall within the gravity of a Stoic framework, but with just slight extensions beyond it.
So for those who don't know, can you define Stoicism, briefly for them so they have an understanding of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, Stoicism as a core concept is quite large. But let me give you my give you my entry into Stoicism.
Absolutely.
And where I came across
100%.
it. Yeah. So that morning I told you about earlier on with the kids that they came in, and I had this, like, basically told them to get lost, and they left a present on the end of my bed, and it was the universe or God or whatever you want to call it through these little precious angels. And in that package was a book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Yep.
Now, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor who had all the power in the world. We most of us know about the Romans, but Marcus Aurelius he broke a chain, and he chose to act with virtue where he could have had hedonism, he could have had short-term gain, he could have, from the Antoine plague, he could have protected himself, but he chose sacrifice. He chose sacrifice through virtue. So Stoicism fundamentally is doing things that are right, doing things that are honest, but in a way that the way the world receives it is there's no malice in what you do, because you are undertaking what is necessary, but based on all the data available to you. And even if that involves self-sacrifice, then that is what it involves. And I think that I come back to fathers, but also sons that do it for their families, or also brothers who do it for their siblings, or your friends. When you see something bigger than you that you can influence without you do not have to sacrifice the individual self. Yeah. That you are in that moment being a true leader, because you are doing what you can. You're being honest with yourself to its fullest, but without doing anything beyond what you are capable of giving. So do not give more than you can give, because in doing so, that becomes self-destructive. So for me, what Stoicism means is living my life to its fullest in a way that that allows me to continually grow, continually thrive, and to let go of things beyond my control. And I'll be honest with you, at times that's included letting go of friends, because our journeys had dissected.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting topic, and I started reading Meditations a little bit just to get more, I guess, information, and I think it kind of goes back to, in my mind, control what you can control, do the right thing, what you think is best, like you said, based on the data, and that's all we can do. That's all we can ever do, right? Is control what we control and do our best based on the data that we're presented with, right? In anything. So I like that definition of yours. And then you talked about surrender too, and how that gets a negative connotation. But I kind of think of, from my perspective, like from the Bible, like deny yourself, and pick up your cross and follow me kind of thing, like surrendering, to the better, greater good type thing. So for you, what does surrender mean for those that you're helping?
So what I would say is that in a like this is a very basic example. I will get deeper in a moment. Okay. But there is reward in the smallest of things. And the human beings we are designed to live in tribes. And so part of our biology, our core biology, is that we release dopamine into our brains when we do acts that benefit our immediate kind of community. So for example, one reward that is a really cheap and easy reward is you see an old person struggling to carry bags to the car. You do not pick them up without permission, but you offer assistance. Now, whether they say yes or no is of no relevance. The reward is the willingness to ask. And so therefore, in the smallest thing, if that is one way, then you can extrapolate that out into be willing to ask that to what you can do in any given moment, as long as it does not take more from you than you can give. And this is where kind of that, if you look at I think it's Zhao, it's basically yin and yang. I can't remember the philosophy, but it's all about balance. And with the yin and yang, you've got the yellow, the black, and then you've got the white dot and the black dot, and it represents the chaos and order in each of us. But in any given moment, we have to balance it out. And another good example would be is you are a man and you see someone who is weaker than you in trouble. Yeah. And you have to evaluate, do I call the police? Do I intervene? Do I run away? And the truth is, no one can answer that question for you unless you're there at that moment. But in each answer, in each question, the one thing, when you close your eyes at night, when the music stops, you should be able to ask yourself, did I do that because that was the best option at the time? And if you try to work towards that with the information available, that is the best option at that time, then everything will start working out a little bit better for you in taking the opportunity to do what you believe is best. Now, that does involve reflection, because you must be willing to reflect and ask yourself the hard questions, because we won't always get it right. Won't always get it right. But I mean, bit of another. Sorry to just throw it back to DIY stuff, but let's say, for example, that your roof is tiled. In Australia, we have two types of roof. We've got a colorbond roof. We've got a tiled roof. Yeah. Let's say that you get someone that comes to your house and he's like, "I want $5,000 to repoint the roof," and you're like, "I'll just repoint the roof myself." You know what I mean? So you get up there, you repoint the roof. You've got to be willing to then look for leaks afterwards. Do you know what I mean? It's the game. But it doesn't mean that at that time that you weighed up the options and then and did the right thing. And so, in short, there is action and consequence. Yep. If you can get more actions that line up when it goes quiet with, okay, I handled that the best I could with the information available at the time, you're winning. And identify areas where you could have done better. But one funny one, Chris, is, have you ever seen those guys that, like, in a bar fight and they're like, hold me back, and you know, and they don't really want to fight, and it's like, you've got to ask yourself, dude, why are you there in the first place?
Because if you go to the deeper meaning, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? And truly, like, why is this my repetition? Why is this my normal? Why is this my pattern? And really dig into that, then you can start shifting stuff.
It's that few words there is exactly it. And by being willing to look into your soul, being willing to look at the very thing that makes you, and being willing to challenge it, is one of the bravest things a man can do, because in doing so, they hold a challenge to everything that they think they know. I mean, a good example is that, like, there's the whole concept of, like, depending where you were born, depending on your environment, depending what kind of opportunities you were given, and the idea, one thing that drives me insane in the modern world as well, and this will actually help people. And guys, don't worry, this is not some kumbaya stuff, okay? Although it might sound like it initially, but a lot of things, while you can take responsibility and accountability, there are certain things that are beyond your control. And that old thing that they push in the media about, like, oh, not everyone's starting line is the same, and not what, people are, like, systemically disadvantaged. Okay, but again, that comes back to what we said previously. It's completely beyond your control. You can't control that. What you control is your actions in any given minute. Also, while, don't get me wrong, I value having a home. I value being able to pay my bills. I value I value things that allow me to continuously progress. And if those core things were taken away from me, it would be a deep struggle. It would be pain. It would be misery. So if you can get yourself out of misery, then everything else is an opportunity for growth. The other thing that I'm speaking for myself here is I learned a long time ago to delineate clearly needs and wants. And in doing so, I still drive a 2003 Peugeot 206 that cost me $1,200.
Yeah.
But I also, sorry, Chris, please.
No, I was gonna say something. Yeah, we chase after the wrong things, right? We chase after the wrong things in life.
And in the car example, you remember earlier on in the podcast I mentioned the stored. So with debt, it is the opposite of the future unspent. So let's say with work and you save, that money is effectively your life energies sacrifice to allow you to live in the future. When you say, for example, that you buy like let's say a Range Rover or a brand new Mustang or a Chevy on finance, and you don't need it. So you've got a car that works already. You have a car that works. It gets you to work or wherever you're going. You decide you need this. The question you need to ask yourself then is, are you doing it for you? Or are you doing it to project an image to the world for other people to look at you? Because let me tell you, nobody actually cares. And you're the one who's sacrificed life now and future life for this thing. Whereas, anyway, sorry, have you got anything? What do you think about that, Chris? Sorry.
No, you're good. You're tracking on that. I agree. I think, we try to impress other people that we don't really care. Like we don't really or shouldn't care about. And that gets us in so many issues. And I wonder too, like, cause you talk about, we're in our DNA and we're made for that tribal experience, right? That community, those relationships in a group. Do you think because we've got so much comfort in life now that we've lost our purpose? Because you think back before all the comforts that we have today, people had roles. You had your hunters, you had your gatherers, you had your caretakers in the community to support one another. So you had a mission like, hey, I've got to go find us food or we're all going to die kind of thing. Or I've got to stand watch and protect from anyone trying to take over our group. Do you think that one of the bigger issues is people just don't have a purpose that they're striving towards? They're just get up, go to work, come home, veg, go to sleep, do it again just to pay bills?
Not only do I believe it, but it has cracked my very soul because I know it to be true. Yeah. And it deeply, deeply affects me because we are, and guys, I'm not being cheesy here, but I truly believe that before the Big Bang, at the beginning of time, there was infinite potential. We can call it God, but it was infinite potential. That potential was released at the Big Bang. And we are made up of that same material that caused the Big Bang, infinite potential. Now, one thing that makes life rich is sacrifice in the service of others. And what has happened now is somewhere along the way, the message got changed. The message was, be at peace. Take it easy. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. Don't think for yourself. Do what you're told. Don't fight back. Surrender to the machine.
Right.
The problem with that is that we then think, okay, I can just stay home. I can just go to work and get paid. There's food in the supermarket. The roads are okay. The no one is at my door knocking it down to attack my family. And the problem, this is good. But then where we've gone so far the other way is what you said is comfort. Yeah. I would even argue that comfort is not just destructive. It is cancerous. And I think that it metastasizes and it spreads because allowing yourself to be comfortable denies yourself the opportunity for growth. Yeah. Now, what can we do in the modern world it is a journey that you must take. But let me tell you one thing I do. So I'm quite comfortable on my own, but the reason that is because that society has created a framework that allows me to do that, and it's not true. So I will go out my way to play darts with guys, to help when they need to move house, to fix. So I been doing websites for 20 plus years, but I also know how to change a car engine. I
Yeah.
also know how to repoint a roof. I also know how to do basic electrics.
Yep.
And I do that not only for myself, but for other people that are my so-called friends or close associates. And I often will go make time to do things I don't want to do, for the
Yep.
very reason that you said, is that we are tribal animals. And if you think back to even England in the 80s with the football hooligans, it's ridiculous, and violence is never the answer, but it was a mentality. And let me say this, right? Our ancestors. So our ancestors, depending where you're from, but let's just you can extrapolate this across the whole world, because you can go Genghis Khan, you can go the Vikings,
Sure.
you can go in Africa, you can go the Zulus. We were born with the need to survive, to ultimately have children, spread our seed. It's a crazy way to say it, but it's true, and make sure that next generation had it better than us. And somewhere along the way, that contract's been broken, because I genuinely despair now that my children are going to have it harder than me. But then I take solitude in knowing that in that struggle that they will find a new path, because maybe what we created was exactly what we deserve, because we lost our hunger.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, another reason I love podcasts, because we get to have a conversation. And you talked about Big Bang. I believe in creation, and having two people come together, maybe have a different opinion on that thing, still have a great conversation, where a lot of people would just not have the conversation, right? And it kind of goes to the discomfort piece, like doing a hard thing, like having that conversation and still being like learning from one another. And that's why it's so critical that people like do the hard thing. Like I try to, when I have tasks to do, I try to pick the hardest one first, or the one I'm gonna dislike the most. When I eat food, I'll eat the thing I dislike most first, but I know I need to eat just to be done with it, instead of putting it off. And I think, yeah, you're so spot on like, that has changed so much. It's like the quote, strong, what is it, how it goes? Weak men or strong men create easy times create weak men create hard times create strong men, and the cycle continues, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're seeing. And I think there's so much out there that people try to avoid. And I think part of it is we have so much access like to online things where you can like debate or stab at somebody's beliefs or what they think without any repercussion, really, instead of being able to sit down and actually have a conversation with someone too. And there's so much to people, and even though if we disagree on things, we can still kind of get along and still have good conversations and progress in life together. And that's why it's we're missing, I think. And that's why I love again having conversations like this, where maybe we don't agree on everything, but we still have a great conversation that's still productive. And I think that's part of it too. We're losing that in society, of that relational piece. Even though we're not in person, we're still now able to utilize some of this comfort and this tools to communicate and have a great discussion and both be better for it, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, what I will say with the reason I use the Big Bang is that just everybody understands it. I don't know what happened. But what I do know is that whatever is the creator is beyond. It is so magnificent. We cannot even comprehend it. And therefore that's why I use the term infinite potential. Yeah.
And I think I love that, because I think we do have so much more potential as individuals than we are actually like living into, for a couple reasons. I think we have just become complacent a little bit, majority of people. And I think we just forget like, again, from my perspective, like someone who created everything, like there's no accident. Like it's crazy. And we don't realize how powerful and what we could actually do. And I think that's a sad thing too, because I think we miss out on so many beautiful things in life because people don't live to their potential because they just stay complacent and they don't take the risks and they don't do the hard thing. That we're missing out on so much beauty and just amazing things, unfortunately, because of it. And so, like, yeah, I think being able to kind of look back into yourself and say, hey, you know, what am I missing? You know, where am I not leaning into who I am more? And am I letting these other things dictate, you know, my life? I think it's such, again, crucial thing that we've been talking about during this episode.
Mm. The idea of basically a greater power is actually one of the most empowering things, because you can hold yourself accountable to something that has got infinite opportunity to support you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this as well with prayer. And I'm not talking about prayers that are predefined. I'm talking about genuine, just prayer. I have never in my life, when I have selflessly asked for something, not been given what I needed to be given ever.
Yeah.
And I will say that as a true, under the eyes of the universe, that is true. And so therefore, in prayer, in selflessness, it is an action. And doing in itself, guys, the act of doing in itself is a virtue, but make sure what you do does more good than it does harm. And when you do undertake harm, make sure you correct it as quickly as you can. Take small things, take what you can control and do them very well. And have I got time for another example? Just one quick example. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Sorry, Chris. I'm from Australia now, but I'm born in England. And Englishmen love saying sorry, especially Northerners, for everything. So just it's just kind of a filler word for us.
Okay.
Now in any given moment, there is what we do. Now, if you can look at, say, for example, something has changed in your life, and it is a change that is you cannot dispute the change. You quite like the old way, but you see that this is the new way. You see this is coming. It is inevitable. So you've got someone pregnant. You're going to get married. You're going to change a job. You're going to move states. You're going to move international. All these things. It is happening. That the roller is coming. If you choose to fight it, energy is spent on an inevitable that is not going to change. If it can change, do it. You know what I mean? We've already established that. And so one thing I think with humans where we go wrong is we've been told by something, I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's good, that you are special, you are wonderful, nothing's your fault, everything happens to you, be a victim. And in doing so, you disempower a man, disempower a person, and you disarm them. And again, what it comes back to is small things. I have the whole philosophy is, can I be 1% better at this? That's it. And if the answer is yes, then I take those steps towards it. Ultimately, where we are is we are on a ball of rock floating around this sun, and we are all together in it. One good thing that we could do right now is, even if you do not believe this to be true, believe that your consciousness has value. The fact that you're self-aware, and this is not my story that I'm going to tell you, but if I offered you, and this is someone else's story, just to be clear, I don't want to take credit where it's not mine, but I love it, is if someone offered you $100 million and you couldn't leave it to your family, it had to die with you, and you died the next morning, 99.99% of people wouldn't take it, because that is the value of your life. And remember this, that the chance of existing itself is trillions to one.
It's a miracle we're all here.
It's an absolute miracle. And therefore, if you can act that way purposefully, you can acknowledge your consciousness and you can acknowledge that there is a shared consciousness, which I'm pretty sure there is. And we've been taken away from that. There's an old thing, and I recommend this to everybody, okay? I only if it's safe to do so. Only if it's safe to do so. But try and get out the city, try and get out where there's light pollution and just look up at the stars.
Yes.
Look at have you done that before?
Oh yeah. That's the best thing ever. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
It is, and if you see the Milky Way and you see the nebulous, it is
Yep.
it is something that must be experienced by every man and our ancestors. One thing that you mentioned earlier, Chris, was loss of connection, loss of community, loss of role, loss of identity, loss of shared morality.
Yep.
One thing that can ground all of us in an instant is looking at the stars at the same time. And there's a famous line from Predator where the guy it's not Dutch, it's the guy that he's tough as hell. He's the guy that kills the pig with the knife. Oh, I can't remember his name. Mac.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mac. Yeah, Mac. So short version is Mac looks up at the moon and he's in hell. And he says, same old moon. And I think that any one of us can ground ourselves instantly by just looking at something beyond our full capacity to comprehend and sit with it for a moment.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like, it just reminds you, how small we are in such a larger story. But don't let that discourage you either, because you still play a part and you still have an impact, which is crazy too to think about. Like, we could still have an impact and be such a part of something so much greater. And yeah, I love this. It's been a great conversation and really diving into that, thinking introspectively on who you are, who you want to be, and how to get there. It's been awesome. So Arky, I appreciate your time and sharing everything that you have today. I really have enjoyed the conversation. And, we've been doing something new with the Upgrade Man is we started this journal. And so what's in this journal, we're doing every episode. And I ask the guest to leave something for the next guest who will be on my show. And so when it comes to that episode, I'll read that comment, that quote, that question from the previous guest to my current guest. And they'll be able to respond, answer the question, talk about how that quote resonates with them in the moment, things like that. And then they'll leave something for the next guest. So for you today, this one comes from Jeff Seckendorf, who's our last guest on. And so I'm going to read you the question. He left a question. I'm going to read this to you, let you kind of answer it however you seem fit in the moment. And then after you've responded, then I'll ask you kind of what you want to leave, whether it be a quote, a comment, piece of advice, a question, whatever it is, for the next guest I have on. So just something kind of cool we're doing to kind of keep everyone connected through the episodes. So from Jeff, your question, Arky, is what is something in your life that felt like quitting? So something that felt like you're quitting, but it turned out to be a positive pivot.
Okay. Interesting one. So I'd worked for years to get my Green Beret in the British Royal Marines. It was Royal Navy Commando. And I'd undertook some of the training, quite a lot of it. And I came off a fast rope and shattered my pelvis. Oh. I crawled for 3 more cycles until I realized my leg wasn't following my body, and then blacked out and woke up in a hospital. I was in a hospital for a long time, and then eventually was, once so-called recovered, I'm full of metal, managed to move on. And my entire life was dedicated to service, was dedicated to paying the price that a man should pay for his country, for his people, for his family. It also gave me money, but that's also part of life, as we've established. Now, at that moment, my brain kind of fractured because my identity was tied up to that. I'd worked for years to get to that point, and I had to make a choice. I went to so-called home, looked around me at the council estate where I lived on, looked at the environment, looked at the opportunities and just said, nope. And I spoke to my wife, spoke to my kids that were too young to understand, and just said, we're going to make a new life. And it was destined, because since coming here over 15 years ago, I thank God or the universe every day that I went through so much pain, because coming out the other side, I've been able to build things that I couldn't even imagine when I was living day to day in the shit.
Yeah. That's such a cool, being able to have that perspective on it, you know? And I'm sure in the moment probably didn't seem like it necessarily. It probably felt terrible, you know, painful, physically, literally, and metaphorically for you. But now being able to kind of see that silver lining, so per se, that's really cool that you're able to kind of, I guess, introspectively look back on that situation and see how it was a positive pivot. So, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that piece to your journey with us there. What would you like to leave for the next guest? Whether it be a comment, a quote, a question, a piece of advice. What would you like to leave?
Well, now you've stimulated my memory of scars, which I have many.
Yeah.
I actually will keep it short for the next guest and say that dear next guest, is there a scar that you have that makes you proud of the man that you have become and are going to become, or so the man you have become and who you will become? And of course, it doesn't have to be physical scars.
Yeah. I'm writing that down. I love that. Is there a scar you have that makes you proud of the man you have become or will become?
Yes. Yeah. I feel that's a nice opportunity for someone to really, really think, because we all carry scars, some of them that we can see, some of them deeper than that.
Yeah. Some emotional, some psychological. I love that question. I think that's going to be a good thing for the next guest. So Arky, again, fantastic episode. Really appreciate you being on and sharing all this with everyone. If people want to connect with you, see what you're doing, learn from you, where's the best place for them to go do that?
No, thanks so much for the opportunity. So guys, my whole work has been around understanding the self, and in doing so, helping others see their patterns, see their moments. I developed a site it is ready for you guys now to take. It will offer you deep insights into the self and offers you growth opportunity. It's called Personality Peak, PEEK.com. And all you need is 5 minutes. And what I said earlier on, if it can make your life 1% better, give you 1% improvement, give you one blind spot or one area where you navigate life well but could do better, it maybe show you a shadow that you don't realize, then the job is done. But what I can promise you this is, and this is a shameless plug, it is free at the point of use, but please do sign up and please come with us on this journey. There's a lot more to come. But for now, guys, my final word is that you have one life. The life is finite. One thing that is inevitable is your life will end. I recommend you to start living today for the person you want to become, and you define that.
I love that. And that's a great way to round out this episode. Amazing. So everyone make sure you connect and take that quiz Arky talked about there, getting connected with him. And yeah, super excited for this episode to be out there. Share with everyone else. If you're not following the show, make sure you give a little like, follow there wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us continue to keep doing this, keep putting out episodes, on mission to get 1,000. We're halfway there, a little over halfway. So we're going to keep moving forward, but a follow will help us do that. And then for those of you who know someone who's trying to maybe figure their lives out or figure themselves out and or maybe take a next big step, share this episode with us so we can help more people together. But until next time, continue to go out there, continue upgrading your life, and we'll talk to you again soon.